So welcome everybody to the panel here on 6G. Are we ambitious enough? And as a little bit of background to the panel, I think we can look a little bit on where we are now. It's an interesting time, right? We have been working on qualifying new technologies, putting together the first sort of concepts around 6G. There's been a lot of research work going on. Now at the same time, we are just sort of preparing for the standardization that will start now after summer. And so that will ramp up, and also the product development, of course, will ramp up. And at the same time, we are getting, of course, interesting feedback from the 5G networks that is now being deployed and used for a number of years, right? So to really bring forward and create a new technology is a big collaboration effort, right? There's many different players that are contributing. And we really would like them to reflect a little bit here today and think about what could then be included in the first version of 6G and what will then be beyond the first version of 6G. And already now you can see that, of course, universities, research are looking for sort of the second generation or the continuation of 6G. All of this is, of course, very important. And over to Marie.
So hello, I'm Marie Hogan, and as head of 6G portfolio strategy at Networks and Ericsson, and following on from Magnus's mentioning of research and evolution towards 6G, I'm super excited, of course, to be involved in shaping the next G. And a couple of things that are of high interest to me in the role that I have would be leveraging on the things that 5G is delivering now and all the way up to 2028, 29, 2030, and building on those to move into 6G. And one of the, I think, key questions ahead of us is striking a good balance between evolving the things in our networks today and over the next 5 years, building on those, making those better, but also adding some new and advanced technologies, use cases, services. So since you're obviously here to listen to the entire panel, let me start now by welcoming everybody, and we'll jump straight into the discussion. So welcome to Mitra from the University of Bristol, to Karri from T-Mobile US, Lucy from Asido, Nakamura-san from NTT Docomo, Ulrich from Nokia, and Zhu from Meta. So let's get started. First question then that I have here. Standardization of 6G is starting, actually this month in Korea. It's the first meeting. And what do you think the priorities should be in order for 6G to be successful? So let me start with Karri, you from T-Mobile, your view.
Thank you very much, thank you. I guess the question is, how do we define and shape our 6G strategy? And it's really simple in a sense that to do that, you have to look back, you have to look at present, and you have to look into the future to the extent you can. And what I mean by that is that to look back, you maybe look at how did we do things when 5G was invented, where there's some overcomplications, things that maybe we could have done simpler, and can we learn from those things? So that's number one. We have to look at where we are today, and those of you who don't know, T-Mobile US is the undisputed leader in 5G, at least in the US. And we have lots of different advanced services that are 5G based today. In fact, all of the business, everything that we do is 5G and 5G only. Large portion, almost all of our customers are 5G enabled, like 90% of the traffic is in 5G. So that drives a lot of input into what do we need to do next. And then you need to think about, okay, what does the future hold? What do we need from the next generation that takes what we're doing today to the next level? And we do this so that we can realize we have a simple vision for the future, which is to have a fully cloudified, AI native, autonomous, multipurpose network. And I want to give you, if I can, also a couple of examples of things that we can learn from past, today, and the future. And what I mean by sort of the three key tenets of 6G strategy for us, which rely on simplicity, being evolutionary as well as revolutionary at the same time. So with simplicity, we had way too many options. We had different ways of connecting core network to the RAN. So for us, we'd like to see 6G being sort of standalone based only. We had way too many sort of things that didn't come at the day one that were needed that then created complications later on. Voice and regulatory services are a good example of that. So there are many different things that we can learn from that drive the strategy, and it's very important to us that as we move into the next generation, we don't repeat some of those things that held us back a little bit as an industry, I would say. And then when I look at where we are today, we have 5G Advanced deployed, and what I mean by that is that we have standalone 5G everywhere. We have multi-carrier aggregation, both in uplink and downlink. And then we have some of these 5G Advanced features that 3GPP defines as 5G Advanced. So for us, the definition of 5G Advanced is broader and maybe a little bit more than what is usually understood just in the context of 3GPP. So we've deployed many different things, and I have to say 5G is the best thing that has ever happened to us, and it's made us as a company who we are. We used to be the distant number 4 in the US marketplace, and today we're the number 1, and I think we're still the biggest, at least sort of in terms of market cap, the most valuable telco company in the world, and it's all because of 5G. But as we deploy these new services, say slicing, for example, it's easy initially when you only have a handful of them. But as you start deploying more and more and more, the engineering challenge becomes more pronounced. How do we launch and define these services at scale? And it's hard. It's really, really hard. So we need to make that simpler in 6G world. And then finally, when I look into the future, every generation needs something new, something that didn't exist before, something that excites people and gives us capabilities that were not there before. And that's something like communication and sensing. Okay, maybe that's an easy example from a technology standpoint, but we need a little bit more than that to create an expectation of something greater than what we can accomplish with 5G alone. And those 3 things, I would say, are the things that I would like to see in 6G standards in its first phase.
Thanks, Karri. That's an excellent overview from the T-Mobile side. But if we jump to Japan, maybe Nakamura-san, your view on what's important to prioritize when we start standardization?
But maybe most of the things Karri already mentioned.
It's easy when you go first, right?
But actually, my company point of view, we set the 3 kind of the prioritized top aspects. One is, of course, that we need to enhance our mobile communication system in terms of the data rate capacity, latency, and reliability, and so on. So we should provide a much better performance in the 6G compared with 5G. And the second one is cost. Yes, operator point of view, cost is very, very important. And also cost and complexity. Yes, as Karri mentioned, 5G is very complicated actually. 4G also, but more and more complicated. So in the 6G, we should consider the simple system at the beginning of the day one of the 6G. So we should make an effort how to develop the simplified system in the 6G. That's the second point. And the third one is we really want to create the new services on the 6G. And potentially NTN, non-terrestrial network, can create the new services. Yes. And also, as Karri mentioned, yes, integration of the sensing and communication, also that could be a very interesting topic. And actually, we discussed with the automotive industry people that they had a strong interest in ISAC, integrated sensing and communication. So in that sense, yes, ISAC could be a key technologies to create new services. Yes, and also, this is not so 3GPP aspect, but we are also very aggressive to develop the so-called human augmentation. Human capability can be transferred via the 6G network so that we can realize the very interesting services using the human emotions, transfer the human emotions or the sensations. Maybe not only the video, audio, haptics, brain signal, motion of the muscle, that can be detected and that can be transferred so that we can create a brand new services, very attractive services. So we are, currently aggressively developing such kind of brand new services toward 6G.
Right. Very interesting. Ulrich, as a fellow infrastructure vendor.
Difficult to find the word, but first
What's your view?
thanks Ericsson to invite me. And if people wonder, indeed, that they invite the competitors, and I may have explained this also to some people in marketing. In the ecosystem, I call us ecosystem partner. We are really working together to make sure that the ecosystem is sustainable and growing and long term, and then afterwards we compete with our better solution and products. And unsurprisingly, I think a lot of what Nakamura-san and Karri said, I would subscribe. And when it comes to the 6G workshop, even Ericsson, T-Mobile, Docomo, and Nokia, and a couple of other companies work together to have like one important document for the workshop, which highlights the priorities that were mentioned before to have a market-oriented 6G. Let me maybe quite a lot was said about services. Let me maybe as a vendor come a little bit from this deployment and migration vision of the day one. What we realize also, that's one of the learning from 5G. What's very important is that we can deploy this on the existing grid and having a meaningful service. That is sort of a basic parameter. That I guess there was also some maybe hard learning with millimeter wave on 5G, where it was not done and it was not successful, which sometimes haunts us still with the regulator. So that's a really, really important one, because even only if we can achieve that, we are sustainable and we are cost effective, and we get a service which is better, because the day one service will always aggregate all radios from 4G, 5G to 6G, or at least from 5G to 6G, to have then a user service. When the user sees a 6G icon, it must be better than if it is a 5G icon. And that's only possible if you aggregate, and it's only possible if you are able to deploy on the existing base station grid, so to speak. That, of course, relates a lot to the spectrums, and one can have an own session about that we have spectrum which enables that, which is basically 6 gigahertz and 7 to 8 gigahertz in priority, because then with the technology we advance, we can go on the grid that we have for 3.5. So that is really a prerequisite for the deployment migration, that we also have simplification, as was said by Karri and Nakamura-san, compared to what we did before. Less options, probably also in the architecture, in the way that we design the physical layer, enable, reduce the total cost of ownership, be sustainable. I guess the whole energy efficiency as a design criteria is really core of that. And of course, AI in various forms. First, it's always good that you have a new technology every 10 years, because it gives you some more freedom than if you add from release to release. So one certainly of this new opportunity is to embed AI in the basic design of how the radio works, how the network works, but also that we expose the data that the network has in order to monetize that for AI applications. So these are the couple of points: efficiency, higher performance, and total cost of ownership that we are going to improve with 6G.
Great. So maybe, Sue, if I turn to you, Meta sits in a little bit of a different place in the ecosystem. What would your view be on priorities?
So first of all, I'm very happy to be here to be part of this panel. And I think I have a tough job to do after all the great views have been shared, but I will try my best. So first of all, we're very excited about 6G. There's a simple reason of that. If you look at the pillars of the 6G, immersive communication is one of the major pillars of 6G. So that aligns very well with our vision of the use cases and device roadmap. And so our vision for 6G is for 6G to enable agentic AI, immersive communication at scale through XR wearables. So in order to realize that, In fact, we have a relatively easier job to do, like we're asking questions. So we'll work with partners in the industry to see how we can work together to realize that vision. There's, I would say, 3 key directions we're interested in. The first one is that how to design a QS framework that can be context-aware, can be flexible enough to support the evolving use cases and requirements. So that's the first area we're interested in. The second one is that, like I think that was also mentioned earlier, how do we leverage AI to learn and optimize the 6G system parameters so that it can be dynamic, like can be adapted to specific or diverse device types or diverse use cases or applications. And the third one is actually an interesting one, like in 6G, another important pillar is integrated sensing and communication. So the idea is that you can use the same waveform to do sensing and communication. So that aligns very well with like our vision of how to realize like the augmented reality, for instance. Now we can have a way to use these waveforms to sense the surroundings or even sense the body movement, so it can build into the AI or AR experiences we have. So, but again, like we're here to ask questions. We really look forward to collaborate with the partners here.
Okay. Thanks very much. Maybe if I continue with you, actually, from the Meta perspective, you are, leaders in innovation in the consumer ecosystem. So, what do you think? Maybe 2 questions. What do you think 6G must deliver by 2035 to satisfy the future of the consumer ecosystem, and maybe what disruptions do you think we will see in that space?
Sure, that's a great question. So I wouldn't dare to say what 6G must to deliver. I mean, it will be up to the partners here, but I can probably share like what we're looking for, like by 2030, or sometimes in not too distant future, what we as Meta for our like use cases or device roadmap, what we're looking for. So the key directions that we want. So first of all, we believe the XR wearables will be the next phase of human and machine interactions, and AI agents will be the key use cases along with those wearables to enable those experiences. And on a day-to-day basis, it will be part of your everyday life, for instance, right? So, like we're talking in terms of like what experience we're talking about. We're talking about, for instance, real-time, context-based assistance from AI agent can always be there, can be conversational. Like it's not easy to do, and yeah, and also like can help you. Can be autonomous. Like when we talk about AI agents, what's different from like just regular AI? It can be autonomous. It can proactively provide, like for instance, reminders. Can help you to do the research, or even like a lot of you probably do research as well. So that's a vision we have, and I think with 6G, with those pillars, I believe those are very critical to realize that vision. So we really look forward to 6G for those vision. And one more thing to add is that we also want these experiences to be like this seamless experience to be anywhere, anytime. Like, I think that's I mean, the 5G is doing a great job, but in 6G we're thinking like anywhere, anytime. Let's say in a crowded subway, in an event like this, we have many people trying to access the network, or even like you're in the wild, in a national park. Like, how do you connect to your service? Like I think I think I asked enough questions. So I'll leave that to the rest of the panel. Yeah.
So thanks a lot. Lucy, your company is driving innovation in the consumer space today already. So what is your view on what we need 6G or otherwise, what do we need in 2030 to 2035, and what disruptions would you think are coming or would you like to see?
Actually, I can copy-paste a lot what you just said. I'm going to answer the question a little bit from the user standpoint. So maybe just a little bit of context. Excedo, we as a company, we built video streaming applications for 20 years. So it's really about the user experience that we're focusing on. And it actually doesn't matter whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there's always going to be the need for consumers to consume and stream media entertainment content. The things that are going to change, though, is 3 things. One is the medium, so the devices. Second is the content format. And the third point is how we interact with such content. Speaking about the medium, that's why I'm echoing very much what Ju just said. We believe that the media consumption will actually move from your mobile phones to XR wearables. And when we talk about XR wearables, in 10 years, we're not talking about these bigger devices like headsets, but we're talking about smart glasses, wearables that are like our everyday glasses today. And how 6G could play and how will have to play a huge role is in order to make these glasses smaller, lighter, and sleeker to fit everyday use, we have to look at remote rendering, right? It's really about the balancing act. What kind of processing should actually happen on the devices, and what kind of processing can be offloaded, for example, to the edge. And that is how 6G can play a role to make the devices lighter and smaller. The second part about the content format, we're moving away, or not moving away, but we're evolving from 2D broadcast or traditional 2D content to holographic and volumetric. The third one is, and again, I very much echo what Ju said, is AI will be a part of our everyday lives. So after, you probably all have seen that Google has announced Android XR as an extension to the existing Android ecosystem. What that does to the XR industry is it will open up a lot of, or it will democratize a lot of applications that are already built on the Android platform to work on XR devices. And AI, and what Google has announced also is that Gemini is a seamless part of all of this interaction with these XR devices. So AI will be the new user interface for us to interact with these glasses that we're going to be wearing every day. They're going to assist us in our everyday scheduling. They will assist us how we also interact with media entertainment content as well. And imagine if we have millions of concurrent users using AI agents, then 6G will have to be able to cover and enable and empower all of that.
Great. So a few challenges and opportunities ahead, I think, for all of us. Magnus.
Yeah, shifting focus a little bit here and thinking about what all the research that has been done and going into the concepts and where we are today in our visions of 6G. So to Dimitra, how well do you feel that this academia 6G research is matching the expectations here that we have been hearing from the other panelists?
I personally think that there is a very good alignment, at least in the UK and in Europe. So we are aligning on KPIs. We are aligning on applications. I mean, holographic, volumetric video, and immersive living, all this, and also digital twinning. We are aligning on those. We are all aligning on the need, for instance, to make our systems more energy efficient. The difference is, I suppose that when we are looking at industry and academia, there is some difference in priorities in terms of technology and also timescales. So we are all part of the same ecosystem, but probably and quite rightly we are looking at different things. For instance, if we are looking where academia led in cell-free radio, terahertz, optical wireless, or for instance on AI, I liked the reference to AI at scale because we don't think very much about AI at scale at infrastructures and semantics. So if we are looking just a few examples, so industry actually obviously is looking at these technologies, how deployable they are, how they can be commercialized, are we able to standardize, but somebody should keep working, for instance, on terahertz. We know that terahertz is not going to be part of our 6G story. I'm sure that we are going to come back to that. Somebody mentioned millimeter wave. Yes, correct. I mean, that was not part of our 5G story. We thought it was going to be, it's not. Somebody needs to keep working on that. So when I'm looking at the two ecosystems, we need to have these programs that they are industry-led, with universities actually supporting, like for instance, the SNS programs in the EU. But it's absolutely necessary to have these programs that they are academically led, so they can actually provide the assets for the next generation after the next generation. And it's quite important to have that happening, like for instance, the ERC programs in the EU again. So there is a good alignment, and we are all have different roles at the ecosystem, and I think we are behaving very well in our roles.
Yeah, we are visiting universities and trying to find everything you have, right?
Yes.
In order to take technologies into useful parts of the coming technologies. One thing you have been looking at is a little bit the smart cities, and which we haven't touched so much upon here today, on how we can use the technologies also for a sort of a smarter or more convenient life in a city, or this massive twinning and these kind of things. That has been a key part of your work as well, right?
It has been, and that is going generally when we are looking at innovation in the future. Are we are looking actually technology for the sake of technology, or we are looking actually at technology and how this is going to help us to solve societal problems or economic problems. And I think that going forward, for instance, we always have seen this as part of my research, how you can use technology to solve real problems like congestion or pollution in a city, or for instance, connected, they are connected, that was mentioned before, so we can have that seamless connectivity. It's about time that we achieve this. About time, for instance, in the UK, that we have train journeys where we are connected. It doesn't happen at the moment. All these are very important, and having tools like digital twins, you know, it helps us solve problems before pre-deployment, at the pre-deployment stage, and then actually see, have a feeling and really understand how these are going to impact people's lives, and that's an important focus.
Yeah, really. I think universities also contribute in this more visionary thinking about how technology also could change society. And now relating back a little bit to the title of the panel here, 6G, are we ambitious enough? And looking now to the expectations here, we have been addressing a few of them here, and Dimitra as well, on what these expectations of consumers, society and industry going forward. So how should we now then balance the sort of the evolution and sort of the opening up the new markets, new possibilities, and really addressing the needs of the future society? Now it's a little bit open here. Nakamura, we would like to start.
Yeah, I'd like to say that 6G is a very, very ambitious. Yeah. There are many topics which are not discussed at the beginning of a 5G discussion. For example, the AI. Yes, now AI everywhere. But the important thing is that our 6G system should be optimized for the AI from the day one. And also, AI should be used for our network, for the efficiency of the operation, management, and so on. So those kind of things need to be considered for the day one of the 6G system, so that could be a good motivation to use for the operator point of view. And also, end-to-end again, yes, that should be a big motivation. Actually, end-to-end services will be started from the 5G era, this decade. But there's some kind of the tighter integration should be considered between the TN and NTN from day one of the 6G. So that should be also very important point. And also, again, the sensing. Yes, sensing is of course very important. Digital twin, metaverse, such kind of things. The huge amount of data need to be detected, and we can use, of course, the variety of the sensors. Yes, in the market, in the field. But if we can use our network as a sensing devices, maybe we can create a new services. So that should be a very strong motivation to deploy the 6G. And again, yes, new services. Yes, we should try to develop the new services. Yes, hopefully together with Meta, we can create an excellent application. Yes, using our technologies, human augmentation together. So maybe that should be a very big motivation, and that should be a good message to consumers. Yes, this is 6G.
Yes.
If I may add to that, I think we are ambitious to the extent it's possible, but it's also getting harder and harder to be ambitious. And what I mean by that is that obviously collectively we all try to reflect on what's needed and create plans and new services and use cases to the extent it's possible. But it is getting harder and harder for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, the 3GPP family of technologies has existed for decades. And we've come to a point where it's really hard to have ambitious plans. It was easier before when it was still in sort of, maybe not in infant stages, but in an early stages of development. You can see new ideas and capabilities that take the technology not just to the next level, but really as a step change. And I think we've done a lot of work to, even in 5G, to have capabilities in place that sort of push the boundary almost as far as it can be. So the older you get, the harder it is to be or have ambitious plans, I guess. And the second piece is that in many ways, although 5G is real today and is giving us a lot of things, it hasn't fully evolved. And to be able to create ambitious plans for the future, you need to take the current capabilities to their limits. So I think we have a lot of runway left on 5G to push it so that we know that, okay, now we need this and this and this, and we need these use cases to, the adoption of use cases to grow and be more commonplace so that we understand what we need next. So we are absolutely as ambitious as we can be, but it is getting a little harder than maybe perhaps it was before.
More reflections here. Zhu?
Oh, yeah, sure. I actually agree to both Nakamura-san and Karri. Like, in what sense? Okay, so first of all, for 6G, we do believe, like, if we look at all 6 pillars, it's quite ambitious enough. It's pushing the forefront of the wireless technology, and also not only wireless, but wireless combined with AI, with other technology as well, like sensing, split computing, and also immersive communication as a major pillar. And also, on the other hand, with that ambitious goal for 6G, we also would like to see maybe some less ambitious part of that can be realized in the 5G advance or 5G evolution as well. Like from meta perspective, like so basically we'll have the products before the 6G arrives. So we want to be able to benefit from those advanced features as well. Maybe like less ambitious version of that. So in my opinion, 6G, yes, it's ambitious enough, and I guess we will need to see, like, practically how do we have those ambitious technology goals to meet the practical deployments and the system development.
Dimitra first, of course.
I don't think that we are ambitious enough. I'm sorry. I do.
Waiting for this, I guess.
I do think that what we are hearing in terms of performance, our targets are very evolutionary. We are following a path that is a very well, walked-in path, because we are actually being preconditioned to think of a certain way about the next generation. And I just want to bring, I know the problem, my statement, and maybe annoy my colleagues here in the panel, but I'm an academic, yes, I'm here to a little bit challenge. But I'm not going to talk very blue sky, just a few things. The one is, nobody is talking about uplink. Your applications, they need very, very high capacity in the uplink. Nobody actually is addressing this. And I think there is a big stage in, first of all, in the technology, but also in the business models of the next generation when we are start addressing uplink capacity. Now we are getting how much? 20 megabits per second if you're lucky? Maybe your network does better. But the thing is that quite a lot of his applications, they need multiple gigabits per second in the uplink, correct? And that is something that really needs a rethink. And that's not blue sky. That's not blue sky at all. Then when we are looking about the next generation, we all think cellular mostly. Why we all think cellular? And for instance, there is a very big opportunity, and some service providers start offering it to see how we can bridge licensed and non-licensed. That doesn't need big investment on new infrastructure, but Wi-Fi 7, I said this to somebody today, is magical, right? Look at the performance and the opportunity to work together, cellular with Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 8, or even start getting to other spectrum bands, like, for instance, optical, terahertz in the future, and get the aggregate benefit of this for the uplink, for instance, but also for having seamless connectivity, is a new way of designing networks. It doesn't need much more capital investment of what we have at the moment, but let's use them better. And let's use them better with deploying AI and deploying AI at scale. So there are things that we can do that they could be ambitious in the way that we are evolving services without needing actually to be constrained to what we know, to what we used, yes, to 3GPP completely, but actually is creating new business models.
I want to add to that. I mean, I agree that there's room for improvement in capitalizing both unlicensed and licensed spectrum, especially in the uplink. But does it have to be Wi-Fi? Not necessarily. I mean, we already introduced LAA or LTE over unlicensed access in the 4G era. We have NR over unlicensed in 5G. And I think there's going to be unlicensed, and there has to be an unlicensed spectrum option in the 6G too. But we have to do it better so that we can maximize the benefit of that unlicensed spectrum. Maybe you do supplemental uplink to improve capacity on the uplink direction. We have different, modulation and coding schemes that are perhaps optimized for, uplink. We could do dynamic TDD that, depending on the situation and the use case, allocates those resources differently. I agree on the notion of us having to specifically pay attention to uplink performance because of these new use cases have a different requirement than smartphones or today's use cases do. But again, I think 6G as a technology generation can certainly help us maximize the benefit of unlicensed and licensed together for those reasons that you mentioned.
Ulrich, you want to?
Yeah, on Sunday we were invited, and others as well, other vendors in some operator group, and there the prevailing question was, do we need 6G? No, are we ambitious enough? So of course, and of course I believe we are navigating well in that space. Another good indicator that we are navigating well is, I guess, if somebody makes a buzzword count in MWC2025, 6G will be very small, which is good. I think this is a good sign that we are now kind of not in some artificial hype bubble at the moment, and everybody understands this is something which comes 2030. We have these requirements that we have to fulfill and make economic sense. I said this. We very strongly believe on this, on the fundamental I mentioned before. The generation, yes, it is a certain model. The generation will, in essence, be deployed on the existing grid of the network. Terahertz is a very important technology for backhauling, and it starts. So we need, of course, better backhauling for 6G, and terahertz communication is fantastic, but that doesn't mean like an IMT type of regulation framework. So we need to match all these requirements, and the energy efficiency, of course, is a huge one to make the network sustainable. That also makes it difficult if at scale we densify everything massively. So that there is maybe a sense of a different zeitgeist, certainly, than we had 10 years ago. I don't take that as being less ambitious, and yeah, I think as Karri said, some of the bases that we have as far as the standard is concerned, they're already very, very advanced. So going away to a completely different modulation, it would make sense to outweigh the cost this introduces into upgrading the network that way. To having a completely radical different network architecture, we will need to evolve the network architecture, but to address certain problems, for example, security, which is quantum safe, so longer key length, and other topics, but in essence, of course, not going away for the sake of doing something different with 6G.
Lucy?
Yes, again, maybe from the user perspective, right? Part of the question was whether we're meeting the expectations of the consumers. I think at the end, the consumers are not really familiar, don't even know the capabilities of 6G, right? If you're asking like the mainstream consumer out there, do they even know what 5G can do, right? Then the question is, will they know what 6G can do? So at the end, it's, and also connectivity for the mainstream user is a hygiene factor. It's important that it works, but it does not necessarily add any value to them if it works, right? They only feel the dissatisfaction if it doesn't work. So at the end, us as an industry, it's our job to build the services and the use cases, the user experiences that actually matter so much to the user so that they can't imagine a life without them, right? And then at the end, it's about us building the applications in a way that would actually require 5G. So how can, not 5G, we're talking about 6G, and how 6G would actually make all of these AI experiences, immersive experiences better. But we always have to think about the user first. What is the best AI experience? What is the best immersive experience? And then to echo what you said, we have to learn we have to actually make the learnings with 5G first, right? We have to take the technology and evolve with the technology. So we're building the experiences. We will hit roadblocks now with 5G. And then hitting the roadblocks will actually help us learn and find out how 6G can solve the roadblocks from 5G today, if that makes sense.
I think this is very interesting reflections. And of course, now we are very much in the middle of a paradigm shift with seeing how the AI agents or assistants is sort of starting to be used on a daily basis. And soon we will use them even more and even more, right? And then we complement with augmented reality. And that will look very different, right? And it's difficult now to see exactly what the requirements are and the user's expectations on these new things. So flexibility in what we do, I guess, so we can adapt to these demands, because it feels like they will evolve quite a lot in the coming years. So perhaps back to you Marie, on a little bit more the challenges that we could imagine.
So yeah, to make sure we leave a little bit of time for questions from the audience as well. Maybe one question before we finish up is, what are the challenges that we see in order to get to 2030 and a successful 6G, but not in 2030 timeframe? What are the challenges you see now over the next 5 years? Because 6G is in quite a different stage of the life cycle to 5G. 5G is in the middle of the peak and starting to roll out globally, monetization taking off, etc. So what are the challenges for 6G in this next upcoming years before we have the first solutions?
Yep.
Nakamura-san?
Yep. But back to the previous question. Yeah, we mentioned that 6G is ambiguous. Yes, ambiguous. Yes. Ambitious. I'm not ambiguous. Ambitious. Yes. Sorry. But I didn't say 6G is blue sky. But actually, we have many challenges facing, and in order to have a success in the 6G, of course, we need to have a success in current 5G, and monetization of the 5G have to be make successfully. Otherwise, maybe a same fail or mistake will be continued and repeated in the 6G era. So anyway, especially from operator point of view, we really want to have a success in the monetization of the 5G solution, especially for the enterprise business. And also, yes, I'm actually a fan of the millimeter wave. And yes, millimeter wave has a very good potentials to provide a higher data rate and higher capacity, of course. But that is not so used in the world, actually. So maybe we should have a nice technologies and technology to use a millimeter wave more. Otherwise, actually, many people have a strong interest in the FR3, higher midband. But a little bit the tricky situation to have a big bandwidth. Yes, to allocate the big bandwidth for the 6G in the globally. So we should better to use the millimeter wave or higher spectrum band more, yes, so that we can have a good success in the 6G.
Yeah.
We are going to have a network that is going to be able to sense, to monitor, and is going to be intelligent. For me, the biggest challenge is security, privacy, and trust. And I think those have to be foundational. So we have to start at the outset to think about these issues, because we are opening up quite a big, surfaces where all those could be compromised.
Excellent point.
And maybe to add, we also have to, one of the challenges is how do we evolve into this new future with the next generation in the best possible way? And of course, the easy answer is just, rip and replace, buy another system and then put it in. But that's not sustainable, nor is it sustainable to have single-purpose networks anymore. Even if you think about 5G, it does one thing and one thing only, although it does it very well, which is wireless connectivity for telco workloads. But in the future, for cost reasons that Nakamura-san mentioned, which I fully agree, we can't afford to build these discrete networks for different types of services and use cases, whether those are internal to us on the IT side or telco side, or external to us, like new types of services like AI and so on. We need to bring that all together into one network. And that transition is not easy, and there are things like spectrum. How do we deal with some of those challenges? Maybe perhaps some regions may be lucky that there's a healthy and fat pipeline of new spectrum, because that's the easiest way to introduce the next generation, but that's not the case everywhere. So we need to be able to share spectrum, not just between previous generation and the next generation, but also between different users, ourselves, and perhaps some of the incumbent users that they may already be in that spectrum band. So we have multiple different challenges across the board, from evolution to these new use cases to security and privacy, all these things that we need to solve so that we can enable the 6G to deliver on its promises, and we can have the best customer experience, and we have some of these new services and devices in place that gives us as a society what we expect from that next generation. And that is actually, when you start thinking about it and identifying these different building blocks of that challenge, they're all there. There's plenty of them. But the good news is that collectively, and I'm really happy that in this panel we have different representatives from different industries, we can solve them. And I don't think we've ever done that before. Like, I would argue that in the initial 5G stages, XR, of course, was one of the use cases. But the development of XR from perhaps user experience standpoint, or from a device standpoint, or from the network standpoint, was somewhat separated from one another. We didn't align to the extent possible. But we have an opportunity to do that now, so that as that next generation takes shape, we can maximize the benefit of all those things, because without user experience, without devices that are sort of consumer friendly, without networks that deliver the performance that's expected, it's not going to happen. And then the migration on top of that.
I'll just say one thing. I fully agree with what Karri said. I think in the 5G, you have red cap, you have XR features in the later releases. Now at the day one for 6G, if we put that into consideration as native features, that would be really helpful.
Great.
Should we open up for the questions?
Yes, I think we've asked all the questions, but perhaps you in the audience have a few questions to ask.
Yes. Yeah. We have two over there.
Hi, I'm Pablo Valerio for E-Times. I want to actually talk about a couple of things. When you were moving already, we're talking about 6G, and the standardization is about to start, and most of the research has been done, or they said it has been done. Anyway, we're still kind of halfway in 5G. The things like, for example, 5G SA is not available everywhere. There are still many, many networks that they have not implemented, and the ones that they have it, they don't have it everywhere. So at the same time, we're talking here about mostly consumer applications. What about the other applications? Like we're talking about, for example, it's not important to use these new technologies for things that are more, I would say, ambitious in terms like, healthcare, in terms of, robotics, in terms of how we can implement the real kind of industry 5.0, in not just more video, more games, more of these things. Are we really having this conversation? And business models from operators, I mean, many operators that are still kind of selling, okay, this, how many gigabytes of data you need. But they're not focusing on verticals. They're not, I'm not saying everyone, I mean, I'm just saying that this is happening, okay? And the other thing is, what is going to happen with other regions like China? How is the conversation with them about all these new technologies? Because I think they are very, very important, and their way of doing business is a little bit different than the one that we have in the West. Thank you.
Okay, so there was a little bit of two questions in that. The first one then is a bit about uptake on the 5G, and we are now already talking about 6G. Karri?
I think again, I don't think the situation is the same everywhere. Like I said, in the US, obviously 5G has been everything and widely available for everyone for a long time. In our network, for example, we deployed standalone 5G nationwide already in 2020, almost 5 years ago. But it's not the case everywhere. And I'm hoping and optimistic that as these use cases that are associated with 5G, the new use cases that translate into business opportunities become maybe more widely adopted, then that creates a beacon of hope for some of these other regions or operators or countries or whatever it may be that are not necessarily seeing that opportunity today. But on your second question on the enterprise side, that's absolutely part of not only 5G evolution, but the next technology generation as well. Enterprises need the same thing, and we talked about AI. That's a golden opportunity, and many enterprises are absolutely capitalizing on the power and benefits of AI. Maybe a little differently from the consumers, but still they are. But they have different expectations in terms of reliability, in terms of SLAs, in terms of security. And that's the piece that we also need to take into account as our networks evolve, that how do we serve that segment in the best possible way. And then thirdly, you alluded to perhaps there's economic challenges in some regions. There's the geopolitics that's happening now, not just between some nations, but it seems like it's all over the place. And we of course tend to view technology generations through a lens of the technology underneath it. But the other piece of having technology generations on a semi-regular basis is that it's the glue that holds us together. It gives us the path to a single family of technologies and helps us avoid fragmentation, which is not helpful for anyone. Because fragmentation leads into multiple different solutions. It eats into your economies of scale, makes it harder to have service continuity and parity between not only different networks, but wherever you may go. Because we're becoming increasingly more global down the road as well. And again, having one uniform family, whether it's 5G or 6G, helps us do that. So I'm optimistic that, and I think about 6G not just through a lens of as an engineer that, hey, what's the bell and whistle that I need to be part of that, but also through a lens of business and society and as a world to help us, stay together and on the path of having one family of technologies for everyone.
Ulrich?
Yeah, to add on, especially on the last on the last point, I think what is encouraging to see also when we are now starting this 6G standardization, that all the protagonists we see globally are strongly committed. The competition is increasing, but as far as what we see, and it is also manifest on the participation from our side, and even the increase from our side, India has come as an additional interest to shape the technology. So I think there is good hope despite all this geopolitical challenge that we're working together towards one technology. I think everybody does recognize that one can only lose if the world goes separate place. I think the vertical sectors and enterprise, I think it is gradually increasing, and as Karri said, networks are slightly different. What I see is we had this from 3G and 4G. 3G was a technology which was enabling telephony and data, and then it took up. There was a little bit, and then it was optimized and also it really matured with LTE. And addressing other segments is also sort of following a similar path between 5G and 6G. One learning that we had is that the strength of this ecosystem is the economy of scale. So if we do something for a specific sector, it's important that we do not have like especially hardware impacting function which is only relevant for that. We did a little bit that mistake with 5G when this is called this URLSC, this robot arms and so on. It was a great idea, but in order to make that happen, you would have like a specific chips that only is for that segment. And this chip didn't find it in the latest version of Nakamura-san's phone, and then there was not the economy of scale. And then now, if we look indeed, that's why I believe XR, which has similar of these requirements in terms of latency, will, and of course that's a totally different, economy of scale, will be an enabler also for the ecosystem for some of these applications which are a little bit less in volume. So we have to make sure that these things which are less in volume don't require like specific implementation on the Ericsson base station or on some chipset. And then I think we will also flourish and will be doing even better than in 5G and 6G. Thanks.
Perhaps we should take the final question.
It has to be super short though.
Yeah.
Okay, the 10-second question.
Well, there's my long two-part question. But anyway, no, it really was just to pick up and to summarize on the themes that you've been talking about, and just to summarize on Ulrich, your theme. It was really a question for Karri and Dimitra, because given the challenges of the telecoms industry, there's not an awful lot of money around. My question to you, Karri, is if they don't build all these AI immersive applications, will you still build a network in the hope that they will come? And I would ask the same question of Dimitra. In an honest way, do you think that Karri will build the network if the applications
Yeah, I would say that we don't do things that, as a company, we don't do things that we do under the premise of if you build it, they will come. What drives us as a business is effectively three things. It's the best value, best network, and best experience. And I think that's been the secret recipe for T-Mobile US's success, that if you do it that way, you have the best value, which is not, by the way, just about pricing. It's about how do you create that, the user experience that is beyond, anything that's out there. How do you have, pricing is part of that, but what other value components you can throw in to the mix so that the customers feel very happy and satisfied with the service that we provide. Underneath that, you have to have the best network. If you have great value proposition but a crappy network, that's not a recipe for success. Because if you have a best network and you have best value, then there's no reason why anyone would not sign for that. And then the last one is this best customer experience, which goes again beyond the technology itself. It's all about the engagement between us as a business, engagement between our network and the end user, that results in that greatest customer satisfaction. And I think that's what's driving this technology evolution as well. It's not necessarily a specific use case or specific segment. It's these underlying three principles that we believe that if we do that well and we evolve the technology to make all those things better, then that results in success. It's not like, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm going to build something and hope that it results in great success. That is not necessarily the best path forward. But it is these three simple things that I believe and we believe as a company will result in a good future. Simple to say, hard to execute on. But that's what I guess.
Can I add something really quick? So by the AI use cases is already happening. With Ray-Ban Meta, for instance, you can ask it any question multimodal. It's not a sales pitch. We just say it's not something like the ecosystem wait for it to happen to see how to build it. The use case is already there. Yeah. No, Meta AI. AI, like if you have a smart glass, you ask AI, like you can ask any question. Yeah.
Okay.
So very quickly, because he wants an answer from me, and I cannot actually say what Karri is going to build. But I do believe that service providers are going to invest less on infrastructure, more on software and agents, because that's from where they're going to make more value on the investments they have at the moment. So there's going to be an evolution. It's going to look different. It's going to be lots of software.
So on that note, I guess we are out of time. Thank you so much to the panel.
Thank you. And thank you all for attending. Thank you. Thank you very much.